Bore da pawb. So good morning, everyone. And it's nice that I can see quite a lot of friends and familiar faces in the participant list, although I can't see your faces, of course. So my name is Linda Norris, and I'm an artist. I live in the village of Maenclochog in North Pembrokeshire, where I've lived for 25 years. As you can see from my overalls in the photograph, I'm a painter, but I also work in ceramic and glass and other media. I was born in Sussex in Fishbourne, and when I was a child, we used to find all sorts of pieces of archaeology and pottery in our garden, and that's where my interest in archaeology began. And in 2019, I did an MA module in art and archaeology at the University of Highlands and Islands in Orkney. So I'm going to talk to you today about how archaeology has impacted my practice as an artist in the last year. In particular, I'm going to talk to you about a project that I've been commissioned to do by Ancient Connections. For anyone who doesn't know, Ancient Connections is an EU-funded project which is exploring and creating links between Pembrokeshire and County Wexford in Ireland. And the project has focused on archaeology and all sorts of creative projects. My project is called What3Sherds and focuses on pottery shards and pieces of ceramic which can be found in most gardens and on walks. Here you can see some pages from my sketchbook showing shard studies from various locations. So I chose pottery shards because they're everywhere. We all pick them up. They're a direct link with the past. Somebody designed them, somebody made them, somebody used them, and somebody threw them away. But they're also broken and have no function or monetary value. So they are rubbish, and as such, they are overlooked. So for me, this is a fascinating link to overlooked domestic history. So I began by going to look at local collections of pottery shards, and here are some shards from Tenby Museum, who kindly gave me access to their collection. As you can see from the quote on the left, one of the things that interests me about shards and fragments is that there is much a clue to what is not there as to what is there. So they're quite intriguing. And although today we wouldn't paint a label on a historic object, the labels in themselves are interesting and they are of their time. I made contact with some Pembrokeshire divers groups, and one of the divers has lent me some shards from the wreck of the Charles Holmes. So Charles Holmes was a schooner that was traveling from Liverpool to America, laden with crockery and gold, allegedly, from factories in the Midlands. And she was wrecked in a storm in 1859, just north of Aberbach, with the loss of all hands. And divers do find these fragments on the seabed. So you can see the worm casts from being in the ocean. Many archaeologists are artists, as you can see from the presentations where you see such fine drawings, and many artists are archaeologists. So there's a big crossover in our disciplines, and observation is key to both. So as an artist, I begin everything by observation, and drawing and painting are part of my observational toolkit. So here you can see me drawing and painting some shards in Tenby Museum. These shards were lent to me by the Newport Pottery Kiln. They're medieval shards, and you can see the marks of the maker in the shards and the thumbprints of the potter. So in pottery, there's a direct connection with the maker. And there's a beautiful honey green glaze on that piece on the bottom right. And on the left, you can just see a piece of slate where the glaze must have dripped down during the firing and caught on the slate, which is probably what caused the pot to break. There were thousands of broken shards in this excavation. So why is my project called What3Sherds? It's because I wanted to use the What3Words app as a way of locating the shards in the landscape. So for anyone who doesn't know, What3Words is a navigation app which is used by emergency services to find people who are lost in the landscape. So many people now cannot read a map or understand grid references because we're all using Google location finders. So the developer of the app divided the world into 3-meter squares and allocated each of those squares 3 random words. It's available in a variety of languages, including Welsh and English. Each location is identified using satellite triangulation, so you can find a fairly precise location using the app, and it applies to any place on the planet. In some developing countries, the app is really useful where people don't actually have addresses. It enables them to locate their houses. And here you can see how I've used the app to locate the find. So this is a pottery shard I found on Skookum Island many years ago. And the 3 words that you can see, overused, frame, snoring, locate the fragment to a specific place on Skookum. Here you can see that I've taken that shard, and at the top left there, I've recreated it in glass. So as a glass artist, I have lots of shards of glass in my studio, and I've combined some of these together with the replica ceramic shard to make a piece. And on the right-hand side, you can see I've made a vinyl resist for the What3Words, which I'm then going to sandblast into the glass. And so as an artist and a maker, I'm interested in using traditional techniques to make contemporary work. And here I am copper foiling some pieces together in the form of a cup. And here are 3 of my cups as finished objects. My plan for What3Sherds was to invite members of the public in Pembrokeshire and in Ireland to send me fragments that they have found in their gardens. But my project had an unexpected problem when I received an email from the National Museum in Dublin informing me that if I ask people to send me shards of pottery, I'll be breaking the law, because in Ireland, anything found in the ground belongs to the state. They also told me that I was in no way to encourage people to dig anywhere, even in their own gardens. So this has meant that I've had to think about new ways to engage people in this project. One of the things I've done is to collaborate with Emma Baines of Narberth Museum to encourage people to engage with their shards in a different way using poetry. So Emma is a poet, and here you can see her in the museum, and in the foreground you can just see some of my poetry inspired ceramic pieces with pieces of Waldo Williams poetry. So we ran a workshop where we invited people to come and bring along a shard of pottery, and they spent the day writing about their fragment. So our idea was to develop a workshop that we can deliver online and that can also be available to people in Ireland. And that's something that we'll be rolling out next year. I've now been commissioned by Narberth Museum to make a piece of ceramic for each of the people who came to the workshop, which is inspired by their writing. Here are some of the experiments from the day, and so you can get an idea of how people engage with their shards and the What3Words app and the writing that came out of it. Another approach was to collaborate with Sarah Lloyd Morris, who's a jeweler from Narberth, to make some jewelry using shards. Again, we ran a workshop in Narberth Museum where people came along and brought shards that they had found in the landscape, and they learned some simple joining techniques to make some jewelry. Here are some of the pieces that were made in the workshop. Alongside developing my shards project, I've been initiating a couple of other projects involving Pembrokeshire archaeology. I've been collecting soil samples from archaeological digs, and in September I was on site at Carvi Fort with Kimberly and Steph and collecting some soil samples. So here you can see one of the volunteers, one of the archaeologists, helping me out by digging a bit of soil for me. And here are some samples back in my studio, samples from Carvi Fort and samples from Wine Mound also. I've been selected for a European Craft Hub residency, and I hope to take these samples to an experimental studio laboratory in Lisbon next year to develop as a project in glass. And a collaboration with another artist, these are samples of soil from Scale Farm on Orkney, which was sent to me by the artist Helen Garbett. Helen is an artist from Stourbridge who has similar interests to my own, and we're collaborating on several projects. Helen's passion is limpets in archaeology, and when I went to the dig at White Sands, St Patrick's Chapel, I noticed that there were a lot of limpets being turned up in the dig. Here you can see Sean Vickery honing his sifting skills, another artist archaeologist. And you can see here that there are a lot of shells, limpets and otherwise, that were turning up on the spoil heap. And most of the shells are charred and are thought to be the remains of feasts, which were dating from as long ago as the 6th century AD. And speaking to the archaeologists, it's now thought that in the past, people would eat at the graveside, either at the time of interment or possibly during seasonal festivals when they may have returned to the burial site. So it's pretty incredible to think that these shells have survived for well over 1,000 years. I collected a load of these shells and I've started to gild them. And here is one that I presented to Helen Garbett for her limpet project. So that's gilded with 24 karat gold. And this is Helen's limpetarium, which she brought to Newport as part of her ongoing investigation into limpets in the landscape and archaeology of Britain. And just to wrap up, there's a bit of archaeology outside of Pembrokeshire involved in my work. I'm designing a stained glass window for Carnarvon Castle at the moment. I work with Rachel Phillips, another artist in Maenclochog, and we have an architectural glass practice called Studio Melon. We've been working on the designs for Carnarvon for quite a long time. And here you can see on the right, I'm making a former for a bronze grille that we've designed to for the window in Carnarvon. And these are our designs for Carnarvon on paper. We haven't started with the glass yet for various reasons of delays, the usual thing. But in a few weeks' time, we're going to blow some glass so that we can blow the roundels for the work. So we'll be going down to Trowbridge to a glass blowing studio to make the glass for that. And so this is just an introduction to my ongoing work. The What3Sherds project is rolling out in the new year. And if anyone's interested to find out more, please get in touch at the email address on the screen. I will also put it in the chat. I'd like to thank Ancient Connections and all the archaeologists who tolerated me and my dog Alfie on their digs this summer as I was rifling through their spoil heaps, and also to Tenby and Narberth Museum, who are always so welcoming and give access to their collections and support my work. If you're interested in finding out any more about my work, you can see my website address here. So thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr.